All I have to say to that is, not sure what all that meant. And I'm crossways with Mike again. Okay, we got Mike in hand here. I was scared to death when John got up and started talking about what I taught him, because I was sure that this was going to be something like his mother taught him manners and I taught him to burp the alphabet. And while that's true, I did teach him more than that, I think. You know, when you stop and think about the relationship of fathers and sons and daughters and the relationship that children have with their mothers do an awful lot more of the day-to-day teaching. But there's something about the authority of a father that has bearing on how the children turn out. I have tried very diligently to teach young couples that want to start families, have families, that when they take on this responsibility of parent, to be a parent, that they are asking for one of the most serious jobs that's ever been assigned to a human being. You're asking for God to put a spirit in your hands, under your control. You're asking for God to trust you with a soul that will eternally be saved or lost, and a lot of it has to do with your teaching, with your instruction, with everything that we read that Solomon says about a father. Did you notice that in most of those Proverbs, it didn't just talk about the father. It talked about the father and the mother. And one of the greatest problems that we have in our society today is that there are not fathers involved in the raising of children, that the fathers are absent from that. There's never been a time, I don't think, in the history of mankind, unless it's because of war, that there are fewer fathers involved in the raising and the family unit than there are at this time, per capita, per person in this country. We probably lead the world in not having fathers and mothers in the families. That's a horrible statistic to be ours. It's something that we're going to pay for. It's something that's going to have a lasting effect on not only the generations, but on the nation itself. Because a nation that does not have a family concept will crumble. Yes. I've been doing a lot of thinking about my responsibility as a father. What I started to tell you about, what I try to teach young couples, is that when you bring a child into the world, until that child grows to a point where they really truly understand the concept of God, like it or not, you are God to that child. You are the supreme being. You're the one that they turn to for everything that they need, want, or shouldn't have. You're the one that decides for them the paths that they take in life until they can choose their own paths. And it just makes the job so much more difficult for one when the other's not involved, because we don't all have the same characteristics. We don't have the same strengths. We don't have the same weaknesses. So in Genesis chapter 2, where God said it's not good for man to be alone, what he meant is that a man is incomplete by himself, and so is a woman. That we need each other to form this family unit to give children what they really need to grow up balanced in their understanding of life. Men, too hard. We're just too hard and sometimes uncaring. Their mother would pick them up when they fell down and she would kiss their boo-boos and I'd say, oh, throw some dirt on it. What's the matter with you? And that just reflects everything in life. It reflects how we treat problems in life until the woman softens the man and the man toughens the woman. And sometimes it's the other way around. We need family units.
That's right.
And we need fathers who recognize that there's more to being a father than creating the child. The term father has an authority aspect to it that can't be done with absenteeism. It can't be accomplished when they're not there. I want to read something to you that I found this in a movie. Not all movies are bad. Some movies are made by people who believe, for people who believe. But before I read this to you about the movie, I want to back up to some of these verses that Bubba read for us. And I want to just point out a few things in them that I want you to look for in what I'm going to read. Okay, let's go back to the very first one that Bubba read in Proverbs chapter 1 and verse 8. Now, understand that the verse just prior to this verse in Proverbs 1 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. The fear of God is the beginning of knowledge. Just how do we get a fear of the Lord? He goes on in verse 8 to say this, hear, my son, your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. All of that balanced teaching that children get from the father and from the mother, it's very important that we listen to it, because any parent worth their salt is going to be giving instruction to the children to make their lives more pleasant, to make their lives more profitable, to make their lives more eternal. In Proverbs 2 or 3, it says, for whom the Lord loves, he reproves. Reprove is kind of it's not like rebuke. It's softer than rebuke, but it is stronger than encourage. This is picking out the flaws. It's like being a nitpicker. You know what a nitpicker is? A nitpicker is something that picks nits. That's profound, isn't it? But if you watch monkeys are famous for that, because they'll sit and they're picking the nits off of, I guess a nit is a bug. Well, when you see them doing that, you understand that what they're doing has two benefits. Number one, tastes good, and the other one is it's getting that off of their companion. It says, for whom the Lord loves, he reproves. This is not just nitpicking. This is taking the flaws and removing the flaws from an individual. It's even as a father corrects the son in whom he delights. Nobody in their right mind just criticizes to be criticizing. If you're going to criticize, it needs to have some benefit to it. It has to have some light at the end of the tunnel, because people get tired of just getting griped at. And I think that may be what Paul was talking about in Colossians chapter 3 when he said this, fathers, do not exasperate your children. Don't exasperate your children so that they will not lose heart. You ever get with somebody that you can't please no matter what? Are you one? Is that your image that you're portraying to your children about God? Because if it is, they're going to run as fast and as far as they can from anything religious, because they don't like that. There seems to be no point in that. There's no gain from that. But when your criticism can be seen as instruction, when the benefits of your instruction can be seen and understood, then it's not exasperating. One of the biggest things that I've found that I was guilty of and I see in the world is I watch other parents dealing with their children is the lack of consistency about things. When one day you laugh at something and the next day you smack them on the lips for it, that's exasperating. That's something that just drives people crazy. What is the standard here? What is the rule? Just let me know what the rule is so that I can live by it. And parents are so easily drawn into that trap to laugh at something one day and correct it severely the next. In the verse just before that, here's what Paul says in Ephesians. He says, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger. Don't ever make them mad. Right. Oh, that's not what he's saying. When you provoke somebody, you know, there's a choice involved in that. The choice of provoking someone. You know, it's kind of like me when I was a kid and I fell subject to this idea of daring, somebody daring me to do something. I've been dared to eat all manner of things. I've been dared to do a lot of things, and I usually fell for it. Sorry to say. I brightened up as I got older, but one of the times that I got sucked into this was there was a beehive in a stump, in a trunk of a tree, an old pine tree, and you could stand back 100 yards and you could watch they were just coming in and out of that thing, and it was like O'Hara International Airport. And one of my best, I don't think I can even call him a friend, dared me to go up and stick a stick in there and stir it up. Well, I never had sores or zits much, but I had a big old boil right on my eyebrow, and that thing almost had my right eye shut. And I had a stick, and I was going up to the thing like this, because I couldn't see out of the right eye, but I went up to that thing with a stick, and I stuck it in there, and I stirred it up real quick, and I took off running. Pooh! And I was fast in those days, or I thought it was anyway. But I'll tell you what was faster. I ran for 2 blocks, and I thought, whoo! And just as soon as I slowed down, one of those things came right over my head and stung me right on that boil on my eye. I provoked those bees. I had a choice of how to handle that. I handled it totally wrong. Parents so often handle their children in ways that they know will provoke the wrong response. Provoking. Something that parents should not do. This does not mean don't tell them anything they don't want to hear. It's not talking about never correct a child, because up here in the very beginning it said God does that, and we're supposed to do that like God does. But do it with the desire to make things better. The apostle made that very clear. But I want you to go down to Proverbs 15 and verse 20. It says, a wise son makes a father glad, but a foolish man despises his mother. There's something here that, you know, on Father's Day, just like Mother's Day, we talked about this on Mother's Day, what is the right gift to give a mother on Mother's Day? It's kind of sad when throughout the whole year we treat our mothers with disrespect. and then to expect them to believe that we really, really, truly love them and respect them on one day a year when we give them a present they may not have even wanted, I don't know about that. Yes, I do know about that. What he says is a wise son makes a father glad. And you think it doesn't make a mother glad too? A wise son is something that just fills a person with joy. A wise child, a child that behaves in such a way that you are glorified by their actions. A child that does not act unbecomingly. You know what unbecoming means? It means acting in such a way that your parents can be proud of you. When a person does things in your presence that they know is not what you approve of, that's not a Father's Day gift or a Mother's Day gift. And it's kind of hard to take a gift seriously from someone who behaves that way a good portion of the year and then on one day does something like this. But, really we should be talking about the fathers and the father's role, because this is Father's Day, right? I want to read something to you here. This came from a movie called Courageous. I was so impressed with this movie because it dealt with a group of men and their determination to be better fathers. I want to read this to you, and it's not going to be very long, but I want you to think about it as I read it and think about what your response would be to the same thing. I firmly believe that God desires for every father to courageously step up and do whatever it takes to be involved in the lives of his children. More than just being there or providing for them, he's to walk with them through their lives and be a visual representation of the character of God. Remember, I said, until they understand you are God to them. A father should love his children and seek to win their hearts. There's a lot of talk about winning the hearts and minds in a war. Well, how about in a family? If we win the hearts of our children, he said he should protect them and discipline them and teach them about God. Where else are they going to learn about God if they don't learn it from the character of their father? He should model how to walk with integrity and treat others with respect, and should call out his children to become respectable men and women who live their lives for what really matters in eternity. Some men hear these things and mock at it or ignore it. But I tell you, as a father and a grandfather and a great-grandfather, you are accountable to God for the position of influence he has given you. You are God to them until they understand the difference. You can't fall asleep at the wheel, only to wake up one day and realize that your job or your hobbies have no eternal value. But the souls of your children do. Some men will hear this and agree with it, but have no resolve to live it out. Some men will live their lives for themselves and waste the opportunity to leave a godly legacy for the next generation. But there are some men, regardless of the mistakes that made in the past, regardless of what our fathers did not do for us, will give the strength of arms the rest of our days to loving God with all that we have, with all that we are, to teach our children to do the same. And whenever possible, to love and mentor others who have no father in their lives, but who desperately need help and direction. We're inviting Any man whose heart is willing and courageous enough to join us in this resolution, in my home, we made the decision years ago, choose you this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Yes. You don't have to ask who will teach my children to follow Christ, because I will. Who will accept the responsibility of providing and protecting my family? I will. Who will ask God to break the chain of destructive patterns in our family's histories? I will. I am their father. Who will bless and pray for my children to boldly pursue whatever God calls them to do? I will. I am their father. I will. I accept this responsibility, and it is my privilege to embrace it. I want the favor of God and His blessing on my home, as any good man should. So where are you, men of courage? Where are you, fathers who fear the Lord? It's time for us to get up and answer the call that God has given and say, I will, I will, I will. Be of good courage, it says in 2 Samuel chapter 10 and verse 12. And let us be courageous for our people and for the cities of our God, and may the Lord do what seems good to Him. We only have our role in this. When we live up to our role, let God do what seems good to Him. It can't be bad for us. If you know your life is not right, if you're a father and you've not lived up to your responsibility, I pray that you'd use this opportunity. Make a decision in your life and give it some resolve that you're not going to let your family down. Won't you come while we stand and sing?